To get started, I'm actually going to just show a spreadsheet here with some data. What we have is two tabs, a claim tab and a policy tab, with individual claim transaction information. Every time that there's a payment made or every time that there's a change in reserves, you'll see a record here in this data. And this is how you need to have the data organized. And then we've got a number of other fields here. These aren't terribly descriptive here because we're just trying to show you the way that the software works. But you could think of these as being like injury type or cause of loss, anything that could be associated with that particular claim that potentially could be of value. We've got a claim identifier here. We also have a policy identifier, and that's important because we want to match up with exposure data and get even more information that could be adding predictive power to our analysis. Our policy tab then has that. It has the policy number. It has an effective date, premium, the limit, exposure, if you have that, and then, again, additional fields. So we just have these various fields called exposure field, up through 1 through 20 or so here. All right, so we've got that information. Just a couple of things here. This panel on the left is where we're loading new data in and kind of our dashboard for running analysis. This panel on the right is going to show us a number of different component development models. And so I'm going to start with the claim transaction data. I'm going to load that in. You have options to load in from a flat file, Excel file, access table, or SQL table. We have an access file, or an Excel file here, rather. The data is all going to be loaded into Microsoft SQL Server environment. And so that is something that you need to have installed on the machine. If you don't currently have that environment, you can get the free version from Microsoft that makes this possible. But we're going to start with some initial data here that's in Excel. It's identifying the different tabs that are available. We have that claim tab, and it's going to read those various columns and make some guesses as to whether or not it's a date field or text or number. And so we're seeing now a wizard that's popping up where we've got each column, and we've got data in those columns that we saw in the spreadsheet. It's giving you the option to turn off that column, say we don't want to bring it in. Right now they're all checked that we want to bring them in. We also have some identification of what type of field they are, and you can change that. If you've got something where, based on the first few records, it's saying it's numeric, but you want to change it because it's always text or something like that, you can do that here. But everything looks good here, so I'm going to continue. All right, and now it's telling us where do we want to put this. I happen to just be using my computer as the SQL server, but if you've got a central server that you have access to and you want to use it there, you can. I'm going to create a new database. I'm just going to call this Demo 1, and I'm just going to call this Claim Transaction and import that data. This is giving us some information about how many nulls are in some of these records. That can be an indication if you've got some problem with your data and how it's being read in. But in this particular case, we just have some data where it has null values, which actually can be quite predictive. And so we're going to leave that. And then it's going to ask us, do we have our loss and defense costs combined or separate in the data? In this case, it's combined, and it's reading in some additional information here. It's actually making guesses about mapping the data based on having seen similarly named fields before. But you can select something different. If we didn't have claims selected here, it would be an option for the other ones. They don't show up anymore because they've already been selected. But everything looks good here, and we'll click Continue. And then it's showing us all the other fields, the fields that weren't mapped to specific things that we need, like the date of loss and all of those that you saw on the previous screen. These are additional fields that are of potential value, and you can click on them to actually see information about them, how much is in different categories. To just if you don't know what a particular field is, you can see some information about it right there. You can decide which fields you want to include in your analysis, and you also have some choices about what you can say about those fields. The default is just to say it's a generic characteristic, just categorical data. But you also have options for group data in the case of numeric fields that you're going to group into bins. and then some geographic options as well, and then one for simply display purposes only, that you don't actually want to use it as a predictive field, but you want to include it after the fact. All right, so that's all good. We're going to use all of those fields. And you also have a choice then for the length of time step. We're going to project forward or analyze using a distinct time step of either a monthly, quarterly, or annual. Think about that like you would with a triangle, how you're organizing the development, the ages of development. In this case, we're just going to say annual, and that also will impact the simulations going forward. It's also coming up with a estimate of what you want to use for basically the end date, the valuation date, as of when the analysis is finished, and we're fine with that as well. All right, and that's one of the things that this is doing first is organizing this transaction data into format where it can be used for building a series of predictive models. So basically building tables where you've got for each claim at each point in time that it existed, a beginning case reserve amount, an ending case reserve amount, and any payments that occurred within that time step. And so that step has just been done. We're not going to bother to save that at this point. We are going to load in the exposure data, though, and that also is in that same file. And in this case, it's the policy number. Same sort of thing. We have the same wizard coming through. Everything's fine here, so we'll click Continue. And we'll call this X data. And that's all fine. Okay, so now same sort of thing here where specific fields are necessary. In this case, it's a more limited set than what we had before. But we'll just go forward with this. And it identified that there were some records on this data where there was no limit associated with it. And so in this case, we're asked to supply a universal limit to apply. The reason why this is important is that we simulate going forward. And in that simulation process, we're going forward a number of time steps. We want to have a functional limit. In some cases, there might not be one, something like workers' comp, where the medical payments could continue to rise. But you want to put in some sort of reasonable upper bound there. In this case, we're just going to take what it's suggesting here based on the other data that it's seen. Same sort of thing here. We can inspect different fields. Notice that this first field actually has everything just in one value. 100% have a value of A. That's automatically going to be excluded from what actually gets analyzed, because it's recognized that has no predictive power. But at this point, we can include it and continue.